passion for BDC and BIM. Having been interested in building things in video games since a young age, he easily found a place to merge these two elements in building information modeling. Welcome to getting to know Navisworks Freedom, sorry.
Thanks, Kayla. And just so everybody knows, we are going to be recording this session as well, and it will be available to all of the attendees at some point later today. So we'll start off with any of the questions that you have. Please put them in the chat, and we will address them towards the end of the session here. And I'll get a little bit of an introduction or an additional introduction. As Kayla had said, I'm Jared Sutliff. I'm the Vice President of BIM Technology Management. We are a commercial construction consulting firm specializing in the AEC and MEP communities and do a variety of different consulting things that we can do between project augmentation, construction documentation, MEP coordination, clash detection, prefab documentation, prefab drawings, spool drawings, those types of things. A little bit more about myself. I've been heavily involved with Navisworks and MEP coordination, specifically on the electrical side for the last 5 years. So with getting to know Navisworks Freedom, we've started off for anybody who downloads Navisworks Freedom. This is what the screen looks like just based off of the original download. Nothing has been changed yet. And so I'm going to get started with the options. And the options here, one of the best things to do is be able to take care of any sort of project units, the quick properties. So for the standard out of the box Navisworks, the linear units automatically comes in as meters. And so for myself being in the United States, I will be changing it to feet and inches fractions. And then you can also adjust the fractional display precision. And then with metric, obviously it goes to the most refined option there. I myself personally prefer 1/8 of an inch. It gets pretty close and allows you for a little bit of construction tolerance. And so that's how you change that. Then under the quick properties, this is one of the things that allows you to pull information out of the models that are linked in, specifically that will tailor to your trades. And how you turn that on is under the main part of the quick properties is show the quick properties. And then after that, or once we load a model in, then we can start going through the category and property types. And I'll show you what that is a little bit later on today. One of the other things that is important, not so much for Navisworks Freedom, but specifically for teams that are utilizing Navisworks, is to make sure to have closed NWD and NWC files on load. This is both in Navisworks and in Revit. I know it doesn't necessarily pertain to Navisworks Freedom, but it is always something that I change immediately upon opening a new version of Navisworks, just so we don't run into issues with anything else down the line. And the other great thing is once you get the quick property definitions set up for your specific trade, you can then export the options and share them with any of your field team, any of your other team members within the company, or anybody that needs to utilize this for their views. And then that way you can have your projects or your company standards in there, so everybody's utilizing it in the same manner. And actually, you know what? There's a few other things for some people who have different colors that stand out to them more or less. We'll see this when I work on some of the sectioning later, but under sectioning, you can change the color to a color that helps stand out. And what that does is that section that cuts through any of the objects, it will have this color as the outline, so you know that you're not seeing the entirety of the object. Snapping is another element. So this will allow you, specifically with dimensions, it'll allow you to snap to a corner or to an edge, so you can get a more accurate dimension from one place to another. and then rotation angle, 45 degrees, and then 5-degree increments. That's pretty standard, and this is obviously out of the box. And so you can adjust this if you find that you need to refine that a little bit more. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go in and we're going to open a file. There are two ways to do this, or a few ways to do this. Control O, the little file here. Otherwise, you can go under the Navisworks and then go to open as well. I do have a sample project that we will open. And one of the things for the specific file types within Navisworks Freedom is you are fairly limited on the type of file that you can open. In regular Navisworks and Navisworks Manage, this list of file types is significantly expanded. And one of the nice things is NWD is the Navisworks document, and that can be created out of Navisworks or Navisworks Manage. And the great thing about that is that combines all of the files into one specific point in time, so you have that as a frame of reference. Autodesk Recap is a point cloud type of file, and so you can also view that here in Navisworks Freedom. And for the sample project, we have a Navisworks document file that I created, and you'll see that we've got it open here, and this view is the specific view that I saved out to have it be the starting point of the project. So one of the things that I do right off the bat is I will change the options or the windows that are available to see. And some of the most important ones are the selection tree, because this shows you the type of models that are in. And so you can see these individual NWCs, when I saved out the NWD, are compiled all together. So then you can select the specific items and find out what elements those are. And you can see it changes the color as I'm going through and selecting those. The properties tab is where, and this gets into the quick properties. And so I'll touch on that a little bit later. The saved viewpoints. And so how this works is when the initial file was created, you can save these specific viewpoints. And so like, for instance, this is the starting view. And then I created specific views that focus in just on the first floor, second floor, and third floor of this project. And so it's great to be able to zoom through and get to the exact spot that you want. And then one of the other ones that I really like is this plan view, and it's off to the side here. And what I'll do is I'll just dock it below the saved viewpoints here. And the nice thing is, like most of the Revit projects or products, you can choose how you want to dock the different windows. And so if you want them to be together, you can set them like that, and then you've got your individual tabs that you can go back and forth. I like having them all available so that I can, bear with me for a second, so that I can see all of them and be able to access them as I need throughout the project. The plan view gives you an idea of where you are at in the project because it'll show you an arrow of where you are at the floor plan view. So it helps orient yourself to a part of the building that you're in, and just gives you a frame of reference based off of the project file itself. As you can see, we're looking north now, and in the plan view, it shows that we are looking north. And then if you rotate completely down, it's not giving me the dot. Sometimes it'll lose the arrow and it'll just be a little dot. But if you're looking off into the distance like this, that is how that will show. And some of the other windows that are available are your like section plan settings. And so this just allows you to go through the sections and adjust them as needed for the specific part of the project. You can also access that by the enable sectioning. And this is turned off by default. So under viewpoint, you can enable your sectioning, and then you'll get the tab for sectioning tools. And then this allows you to change how much of the building is cut and visible, and you can adjust these planes as needed to get specific views that you need for a particular room or area. And as you can see, when you first activate this, the current plane is 1 and the alignment is to the top, but you can see it's not to the top. And one of the other issues that I have had in some projects that I've opened is the section plane is way off in the distance. And so you're not sure where it is or how to get to it. And that's so how you can get that to be visible in the view that you currently have is this fit selection. So what I'll do for the top is I usually select the topmost part of the model, and then I will fit that to the view. And since this wasn't actually, even it says it's aligned to the top, it actually is not. You hit the drop down here and align to the top. And now you can see that it's cutting through, and now our plane is actually visible next to the model that we have. And you can do that fit selection for any of the top, bottom, left, right, front, back, and those correlate, those specific sections correlate to your view cube here as well. So we know if I turn on plane 3, because we'll have top, bottom, and then plane 3, I want that to be the front. And so you can see now that it's oriented to the front. So this is actually a really great thing to have shown here as well. So this particular plane that I have is cutting through, but there's reason I can't see the rest of the building is one of the other planes is also oriented to the front view. Oh, that's why it happened. So I failed. I was not on plane 3 to make sure that it's oriented to the front view. So now that we're oriented to plane 3, I can grade this one out, and you can see that we have the correct view selected and the correct cut plane. And then 4 is oriented to the back, so this is correct. Plane 5 is oriented to the left, and if we rotate around, view cube for the left here. And plane 6 is to the right. And then if we are good with our adjustments and don't want to see the plane, we can hide that. And also with the sections as well, is if there's a particular angle to the building, you can rotate the section around to match that particular angle of the building. So you can view like a 10 or 15, 20 degree angle against the side of the building. And so then you can, instead of seeing it skew, you see it face on. Then we will get to the next couple of things under the viewpoint. With Navisworks Manage and Navisworks itself, you can actually save the specific viewpoints as we have here. You can't do that with Navisworks Freedom, so you're limited to what the whoever created the file has already set up for you. And we can change the difference in the lighting for the render style. So we can do full lighting, we can do scene lights, which we don't have set up in this test project. Headlight is shown essentially from the camera, so you'll be able to get the different types of shading within your project. And it works out pretty well to keep it this way, but as you can see, I'm rotating, and now we lose the texture on this wall here. And then if we turn no lights on, then you lose all definition of model edges and different things like that as well. So scene lights is pretty good. So you can see it's got a nice little bit of texture and some not quite shading, but a little bit. And it just helps you visualize the difference between. And then as with the headlight, I turn and face this wall, you can see that you can still see the color on the wall itself instead of it being blocked out. So scene lighting is typically pretty good. That's what I always use, but find out what works best for you and what you need. And then some of the other modes that are available is wireframe. And as you can see, it turns everything wireframe, and it's pretty hard to see and get the definition of. But the nice thing is if you want to be able to see exactly how far down something goes, or if you need to look through inside a wall, this is an easy way to do it to help you find where do you have it? Hidden line is just that. Any object that is out of your view becomes hidden. And so we're just in this room and we can't see any other object or any other line outside of that. And then full render will actually have textures and anything that comes through in the exports to show what is concrete, what is brick, those types of things. This mode is pretty heavy as far as being able to see clashes and identify the difference between the trades. So I usually leave it as the shaded just because it's easier for me to visualize the types of things that I need to see. The rendered mode, full render, is can be a great option, especially if you are showing and walking around a space for a client, because they'll actually be able to see what is a little bit more of a realistic option to the building that you're in. And moving on to some of the tools that we have, I've been flying around with the walk command, and the walk command is my favorite of the tools because it encapsulates all of the different options all into one. So you can pan, you can rotate, you can look around, and you can also select by right clicking. Where if you have just the pan tool, is all you can do is move around in like the Z and Y coordinates, depending on which way you were looking. And now if I want to rotate around, I don't have that option. So I'd have to use the rotate or orbit tool, which then I can rotate and pivot. And you can see it's selected the pivot point on the back wall there. And this works out pretty well for a lot of people. And the one issue that I have had with it is sometimes the pivot point is way off in the middle of nowhere. And so as you're trying to rotate around, you'll be way out in the middle of space and you lose the location of the model itself. That's where the viewpoints are really helpful, because then it doesn't matter where you're at, you can always come back to the main views. The look around command does just that. It takes the point of the camera and it allows you to look around as if you were rotating your head within a space. And then now the walk command, like I said, it combines everything together. So with the walk command, you can roll the middle mouse scroll button down and up, and that pans the camera, as you see here, down and up from a specific spot. If you push and hold the middle mouse button down, if your mouse is set up this way, you will be able to pan, but you'll be able to pan in every direction. And so it's not just left, right. If I go kind of at a 45-degree angle, you see I'm panning left and right and up. And so I can do a circle and I can rotate around. So that's where using this command in the middle mouse button really helps. And then if you press and hold the left mouse button, you can walk forward, you can walk backward, and you can turn side to side. And similar to the pan command, you can walk forward and pan to the left, pan to the right, walk backward, pan to the left, pan to the right, then pan to the left. And so a combination of those, this all-in-one tool allows you to fly around the space very efficiently. It is a pain in the butt to get used to. It does take a little bit of practice and walking around. And that brings me to the next thing with the walk command. There is also a linear speed and an angular speed. Some projects that I've had have been up in the 500 feet per second. And as you can see, that really speeds up how you fly around. And I'm sorry if I'm making anybody sick here. But that is something that has caused a lot of issues, specifically with field foremen and people who are not as quite well versed in how the controls of this work. And so these settings are also tied to the specific viewpoints as well. So if we look at and we want to edit the starting view options here, you can see that the linear speed is set to 30 feet per second. And so every time, if somebody changes the linear speed, then you go back to the same viewpoint, it brings you right back to those same settings. And under the review tab here, we have a way to make some edits or be able to pull information. It won't actually save any of these since we can't save any viewpoints. But for instance, the field team needs to find out how far away from these pipes this ductwork is, or how far away from the inside wall. So you can measure, and the measure tool has a few different options here. So you have point to point, and that will give you the direct point to point, and then it will also show you the X, Y, and Z. And you can also do between multiple points. You can do a point line, accumulate area, and you can start getting area or angle and area. So you can start getting additional information out of that. So from the point to point, you can see how it's snapped to the face of the wall. And as I was talking about in the settings, it will also snap to a point. So you see how the X there is right on the point. That's a particular spot on this pipe that allows you to find one piece of the geometry that it can actually snap to. So that's where that point comes into play. Otherwise, it will be just on the wall here. And as you saw, I was not using the feet to rotate around here as well. So that is when you're in the different tools and you need to get a different vantage point, you can hit and hold shift and the middle mouse button, and that will allow you to rotate around in the specific tool. And so then for the measure tool, you can see how it's giving us a point-to-point measurement here. And so as we walk down the duct, you can see that it's changing the dimensions, and it's pretty tough to get exactly how far away it is. And the nice thing is, so I clicked once on the wall back here. I will click again on the face of the ductwork here, and now you can see it gives us this on this dimension string that we had. So the point-to-point dimension is 12 feet, 0 inches and a half. And then if we're looking in the Y direction, so from the face of the wall to the face of the ductwork, this duct is 6 foot and 3/8 of an inch off of the face of the wall. So this will get you into, give you a lot of additional information, depending if you need both elevation and your XY coordinates from a specific spot. Or a lot of people will confuse it and be like, oh, that's 12 inches or 12 feet away. And in actuality, it's not, because of how far away we went on our second point. So the multiple points, you can do the same thing, and it will give you some additional information as you go. So you can gauge, let's say you want elevation here. So we have, actually, let's go from the corner of the wall here. I'll zoom in so I can get this spot right here. So from the first point, actually, nope, we'll start over here with this so I can get the specific point. So from the corner of the wall here to the face of the duct, once again, we're at 6'3" and an eighth, but we want to actually go from the top of the ductwork. So now we're getting our 2 dimensions here. And we can also snap to the edge because we turned this on. So from the top corner of the duct, we have 6 foot, 0 3/8 inches from the wall. And then the top of the duct is also 8 foot, 1.5 inches from the floor. So that helps get some additional information. And then we can clear. You can also lock the specific axis in your points. So if we only want the Y axis, then it doesn't matter where we go. It gives you just the Y axis. And you can lock it to the Z, and then you'll get just the Z axis no matter where you're at or where you're placing your points, because it will drop it specifically there. So that also helps in a way to get the specific type of information that you need. Under the Home tab, we had turned on our quick properties through the options, and you can also turn the properties on as well. And as you can see in the parentheses there, Shift F7, that will allow you to turn the properties on and off. Same with the quick properties. And so with the quick properties, what those do is when you hover over an object, it will tell you the additional information that we have. So with this turned on, I can hover over the duct. And so you can see the item name, rectangular duct, element size is 400 by 350. And the item layer, it's on level 3. And how that information is pulled out is all based off of the properties of this specific duct. So each of these tabs correlate to the different properties within the quick properties options. And so item property name is so rectangular duct. The element and the size is the free size here. And then the level is under item and layer, so for level 3. So let's say we actually want to pull some different information. Let's say we also want to have the bottom elevation. So under the options, quick property definitions, so you can see we have item and name. The category is the tabs and the properties, and then the property is the actual individual part here. And then I go back into the item, you can see that it's pulling from the item tab and the property is the name. And then also here, we've got the item and the layer. So we will need to, we want to add a category or add a quick property. And so we want this one to be from the element tab. And we also want it to be bottom elevation. And you can see here, there are multiple bottom elevations. Unfortunately, since there are multiple NWCs that are in here, and so each of them has a bottom elevation, and the element ID is just different, or the property is just different enough in each of those that it pulls in all of them from all of the files. So this can be rather frustrating, but especially if you have, say, 10 or 12 bottom elevations, because it doesn't tell you which one it's from. And hopefully, this is a request that I have into Autodesk, is they'll actually put in parentheses what NWC these are from, because then you'll know exactly which one you want right off the bat instead of having to waste the time playing around. The great thing is, if you the per trade, you have your standards and your standard naming conventions and your standard properties within your own firm. These will translate across, and they should capture every NWC that you export. So once you set this up for your own company, it should translate across to any of the projects that you have. So there shouldn't have to be any adjustment to it. I have had it where it does cause problems, but for the most part, it should line up, especially if you import or open just your own NWC and then get your properties, quick properties set up with that, then that should translate across. So we're gonna give this a quick test. So now I'll hover over, and so you can see the property that we had is not the correct one. So we'll have to unfortunately go back into our quick properties and change the bottom elevation to one of the other ones. And we'll see if that works. That doesn't work. So in this case, it is the last one in the list of bottom elevations. And once again, element tab, bottom elevation. And now when we hover over, you can see now that the element bottom elevation is shown in this, in the quick properties. And it'll disappear if you hover over a specific object for too long, but you just mouse away and then mouse back, and it will give you that specific option. And so you can do that with any specific item in here. As you can see, this particular light, the item name and the item layer, that translates across all of the different files, because these items are just the kind of the base actual file types or elements within every file. And then the elements, that'll be what you have to change specifically. One of the other great things that you can do is you can select and hide specific elements if you need to see other options. And so you can hide them one at a time. You can shift select, it selects the entire file. But if you control select, you can select the specific elements that you want to hide or getting a better view. So and either Control H, that hides the selected items. You can use the hide button here under the item tools. You can also hide the specific elements within your selection tree itself. So you can see these 3 duct were selected and hidden, and you can select, you can see how it selected this one back here. So that's that specific piece of duct. And then you can Control H or right click and hide. And the only potential problem with that is hiding elements. Then if you go back to it again, or try to get back to the same area, and then you're trying to take a measurement from something that's not there, well, that's rather unfortunate. But under the home, you can unhide all, or you can unrequire all. So now if we unhide all, every single object that we did hide previously is now shown. And that translates across all of the individual NWC files and all of the individual elements within that. And speaking of NWC files, in our selection tree, as I touched base on earlier, you can select each one of those, but individually. And then within that, there's the trees that allow you to dive deeper into what each of the specific elements are. And it gives you more, a little bit more information as to what is all exported from either Revit or CAD 3D, FBX files, IMC files, OBJ files. So it depending on what it is, it'll pull specific information. Autodesk products talk better with each other than others, but one of the integrations that they've released with 2023 is they've started allowing properties to translate from a few additional files. So let's see, another one of the other tabs. So animation tab, I didn't set up an animation, so I'm not sure if that translates through into Navisworks Freedom. But from Navisworks Manage and Navisworks, you can actually create a recording of fly through, and it will show, and you'll be able to save that note, not any different than the save viewpoints. And so that is a nice thing to have if you have a specific walkthrough, and then you can save that walkthrough. And as the model updates and progresses, you can rerun that animation and see how the changes over the course of the coordination duration have affected specific areas. Under view, you can toggle different elements of the navigation bar. So if you don't want to see the view cube, you can turn it off. I always leave it on because it helps me orient myself to the project along with the plan view. And the navigation bar, if you turn that off, if you don't want to see the different icons over here, you can turn that off or keep it on. And so then you can select each of the different tools as needed. Heads up display, it will show you similar to the view cube, but it'll show you the orientation of the X, Y, and Z plane in relationship to the camera. And your position readout will actually give you the specific coordinates based off of the project itself. So it's just nice to have a little bit more information if you need. I'm more of a visual person than a numbers person, so I typically don't have those on, but I can see that being helpful for a lot of people. Reference views, so you can have your plan view or your section view, and your section view actually will, it's the same thing as the plan view, but obviously utilizing a section versus the plan. Under the view, you can also turn on and off the grids. That tends to be a really nice option to have. So if you're in the middle of a building and you're not sure exactly which grid intersection an issue is, you can turn those on, and then you can see we've got the J8 intersection is right here. And that will allow you to position yourself and be able to look on any construction documentation or any plans that you have and help orient yourself to the specific area. So the view, I just got it as a fixed. So, or sorry, the grid is fixed, so it's always on one. You can choose to show all the grids, and you can see that it's showing all the grids on all the layers. You can show just below, you can show just above, and in a lot of instances, I've seen it where it shows above and below. So then as you go up to the next floor, you see how the second floor had turned green because that is the low or the level below, and the red is the level above. And then that changes again when we're on third level. You know, full screen and that allow you to, it actually pulled the screen over to my main monitor. So the view that we had over here is on a separate monitor. So I don't typically use that because I want to see the different properties and my viewports and plan view and selection tree as well. So I typically never use that. You can also split the view, so you can have two different views open at the same time for two different areas or two different views. So if there's a couple of conflicts and you need to see two different areas, like specific, or for instance, a mechanical room, and you want to be able to see from this side of the equipment and also this side of the equipment, it allows you to get two different vantage points on the same main screen, and you'll be able to split it vertically or horizontally if you want to. You can split a view again and again and again. And how to get back to a single view is you just close out those specific views. The background settings, you can change how you want the top and bottom color to look. So let's say we actually want this to be more of like a dark gray, denoting the ground level, and the top color is more of a sky. You can change that, and you can see it just changes how the background of the Navis file looks itself. That's more or less just a customize if you want to, and you can either do graduated, you can do it all as one, or you can have a hard horizon in there with a couple of different graphics. So it'll show you, kind of give you a little bit different perspective as to the orientation of the building. We already covered the different windows, and it just brings up some additional information with the tools that we touch base on. And then there's a couple of workspaces that come standard. You can customize your workspace if you want to. So that will save all of the information and windows that you have open where they're docked to. So you can save that out. You can share that with other people, or you can load in any of the standard ones that are available. And you can do some printing if you want. So it'll print the specific view that you have. And so then that way you can either save it out, print to PDF. For me personally, and what I typically do is just do a screen cap of it. Works a little easier, a little bit more flexible for the type of work that I'm doing. One of the other things I didn't mention when we were first talking about the Windows options is you can either have them pinned so they're visible all the time, or you can also have them auto hide. And what it does, it'll just pull the tab off to the side, give you more visibility. And then when you need it, you just roll mouse over and it'll bring up that window again so that you can make your selections. You can hide specific elements if you want to, unhide different elements. So whichever part of how you want your windows to look, that is how that works. And then one of the other things that can be done as well, and I don't think you can do that in Freedom. I think I'm thinking of Navisworks Manage specifically. But if there happens to be a transform, or if you like change the color which once again, you can't do in Navisworks Freedom. You can just reset the appearance, reset the transform. So if you did move something out of the way to see how far it needed to go to coordinate, that would be how you reset that. So with that, we're about 45 minutes into the webinar here. We will open it up for any questions. I don't see if anybody has posted anything yet. Jeff or Kayla, have you seen any questions? Does anybody have any questions? If so, please type them into the chat box.
No, Jared, I guess from my perspective, it seemed pretty straightforward. Covered pretty much everything. I was even trying to think of it from other people's perspectives to see what questions might arise, and you pretty much hit it all.
All right, well, I wasn't sure if I would run long or not, so I'm glad I didn't. I guess some of the other things that we can explore is just some of the additional properties within the specific elements. So if out of Revit, you can have your different phases. So whether it's new construction, demolition, a future phase, the Revit type. So this gives you additional information on the families. So that this is the base rectangular duct, and then the type metered elbows. And then it'll also give you the specific element ID as well. And then this ties to the specific object within Revit. So you can copy this out and paste that into your find element in Revit, and then it should take you right to that, or at least select that specific element. The reference level just gives a little bit additional information, so you can see elevate the overall elevation from ground level, the family type. I don't think I'm missing anything else as far as Navisworks Freedom goes. You can, one of the other things you can do as well is change from perspective to orthographic. And so you see it definitely gives you a different look. If you go to the walk command, it changes you back to perspective since you're walking around. The orthographic can't be selected if you have the walk tool selected. So if we go under our selection tool, we now can do the orthographic, and you can see how it changes. And so this will allow you to get a specific, kind of flat on view. And I'll show you the difference here. So from this, the orthographic view, you can see that it's essentially like a section just of or an elevation of just the face of the building. And then if I change that back to perspective, you can see how it pulls the third dimension into it, and gives you just a little bit different look to it. One of the other things that is a part of Navisworks here as well is there is a realism. With my experience, I typically never use it because I want to fly through walls and see all of the different objects and stuff as I'm going around. You can turn on collision, and you can turn on gravity as well. And so when I start to walk, you can see I can't go any higher than where I'm at currently. Got a little fast there. And you can see I'm stuck on the railing here. And so for people who struggle a little bit with navigating Navisworks, you can turn the collision on, and you can see I'm not able to fly through the walls anymore, and I'm constrained to any of the geometry that is shown in the model here. And so, for instance, if I want to walk up the, ooh, that's a nice piping right there. If I want to walk up the stairs, I can walk up the stairs, and then up and over top of those pipes there, and then now I'm on the third level. And so that can be kind of a fun way to explore your Navis file. Like I said, it'll help people who are less experienced stay within the constraints of a specific area. The problem is now if we want to see the elements that are behind this wall, you'll have to turn off the collision, which also turns off your gravity, and then you'll be able to walk through the wall. And then you can also do third person. I'll do third person with the gravity and collision. And look at that, we've got ourselves here as a construction worker, and we're able to kind of walk around and kind of gauge what things would be like from a third person perspective. Here we go, walking down the stairs. And this is why we weren't able to get over that railing, because the ductwork is also in the way. So yeah, I think that that was the other kind of fun thing to explore around with Navisworks Freedom. And if we don't have any questions, I will return the last 10 minutes of your lunch. For those of you that are in Central Standard Time, of course.
All right, thanks, Jared. And thanks everyone for joining us today. I think we'll be doing these again in the future, so stay tuned for upcoming Navisworks manage how-to videos and that kind of thing.
Yep, yeah, we'll get in a lot more in depth with a lot of the functionality and some of the best practices and how to set up clash detection and how to go through that process so that you can set up your own projects in a way that works for you and your individual team instead of relying on somebody else's model that may have elements hidden that are not clashed or elements that are not clashed. I personally have run into some issues where, say, clearance zones have been turned off in a particular Navis project, and that ended up causing a lot of site problems. So it's a good practice to have your own file that you do your own clash reports on so that you know that nothing is being missed, and then you can bring that up to the other teams. So we'll touch base on Navisworks Manage with the next webinar in the Getting to Know Navisworks series, and we'll go from there.
All right, thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day, and appreciate you joining.